You didn't get serious about music until you were in your 20s, right?
Well, it was for as long as I've played guitar, I should play much better than I do. My second grade teacher was married to a gentleman that was in the music store business forever, from one of the old families out in our area. His name was Charles Wenchy, Wensche, and I came home from school one day, and my mom said, "What would you think about taking guitar lessons? Mr. Wenchy teaches guitar lessons." And I said, "Well, that'd be fun." And that was about it. I mean, there was no forethought. They bought me a little starter guitar, and Mr. Winchie taught me a few chords, and then he stopped giving lessons, and my mom set me up with a music teacher in downtown Houston, close to where she worked. My parents both worked for the old Humble Company, met working for the old Humble Company, which became Exxon,
Right.
and they were. My mom was there for 40 years, my dad for 37. But once a week, she would drive. She'd get off work at 4:45, fight the traffic all the way out. We're 28 miles northwest of downtown. She'd fight the
Right.
traffic, pick me up, take me back in for a 7 or 8 o'clock in the evening music lesson, while my dad worked late on those nights, and I'd have my guitar lesson, and then we'd all three go home and stop off at our favorite Mexican food restaurant every. It was the lessons were on Monday nights for years at first, and then Thursday nights after that, and so that was something we always did too. One of the things about my parents both working in the same place, and because of the commute in those days in Houston was about the same as it is now, with fewer people, but the roads were much smaller and not as many. My parents rode to work and back home from work together every day, and so that
Oh,
could be up
wow.
to an hour and a half each way. So they even though they didn't work together at the office, they spent lots of time together every day, and that's something I think back on as what would be a lovely part of a relationship,
Oh,
and
of course.
we just always did things together.
Yeah, that's great to spend that time together. That's great. Now, when you started playing, did you know it was a passion right away?
I didn't know. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it, and nobody at the little Lutheran school I went to, Trinity Lutheran, uh, there were there were 10 of us in my first grade class, and we grew to a class of 12 by the time I was in the eighth grade. In my first grade class, there were two girls and eight boys. One of the girls was my first cousin, and Wanda is her name, and the other girl's last name was Klein, but was no relation. But so even that sort of made the idea of dating impossible.
Yeah.
Somebody that might be related. It was a very small school. Nobody else even had a guitar. So I felt sort of you know singled out just because I had a guitar,
Right.
and we get to play occasionally in school. Nothing complicated, but I would be asked to play occasionally for school functions, and that was a big boost to me in those days.
Well, it's so interesting that you got traction in the 70s and along the way picked up degrees in journalism and German. So it wasn't like you were laying around watching the grass grow. What was it that finally triggered you to start writing and actually making this a career choice instead of journalism or something else? Why this?
The it, it was, I knew by the time I was in school and playing out. I got my first paid gigs when I was 18 in the summer of 76 with a high school buddy of mine. Bruce Lyon is his name, and Bruce was a motocrosser as well, so we had lots in common. And he's a year older than I, and he got his driver's license a year before I did, and so he and I would go into Houston to H&H Music in those days and take guitar lessons. We worked up some songs in the summer of 1976 and got a couple of local gigs in restaurants, a place called the Mariner on FM 1960,
Hmm.
because their regular bar singer, guitar player, entertainment wanted a couple of nights off that summer to spend more time with his children. So we played on Tuesdays and Saturdays, and I just loved it. I just loved doing it. And when I went back to school, I just kept trying to play. So it was then that I realized how much I enjoyed doing it. I never thought that was a realistic thing to aspire to be able to do it for a living. I mean, we made $50 a night at the Mariner, and that was huge. You know, my parents sent me to school, so I didn't have to worry about paying for my tuition or my rent. And any money that I made playing, I could save up and put back into buying new equipment or saving up for a new guitar, and making my sound system better. So I did just that, and just kept playing after that everywhere I could.